Hello out there, everybody. Ready for Ask Autoline? Most of you already watching probably know the drill. If you don't know the drill and would like to join in the conversation, check down on the right-hand side. If you're using a computer, you'll see a chat box there. If you're using a mobile device, it might be below that. You have to have a Gmail account. Doesn't cost you anything, but you can sign up with a Gmail account and get involved in the conversation. And of course, if you want to be notified when we have fresh new video available, we got a good one coming. I'll talk about that later in the show. And you want to watch on our YouTube channel, check out the bell below next to the subscribe button to turn on notifications. Okay, I'd like to talk for a couple of minutes about things I see going on in the business. Then we'll get to all your questions. And as you know, it's a free format. Just pepper me with questions and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. But here's something that I've been thinking about over the last week, and it's all got to do with new car sales in the U.S. market. This market is unbelievable. It has caught all of the experts by surprise because during the year, they all said, oh, interest rates are going up. Interest rates, that's going to hurt car sales. Didn't happen. Then they said, well, gas prices are going up. That's going to mean people aren't going to buy as many new cars. That hasn't happened. Then it was like, oh, there's so many vehicles coming off lease. They're going to flood the market. That's going to hurt new car sales. It hasn't happened. And then they said, look, this is the longest running expansion in car sales in the history of the automotive industry. It's got to come to an end. It hasn't come to an end, at least not yet. And I think it's pretty amazing. So in June, consumers bought 1.5 million vehicles, and that's a good number. Boy, I tell you, anything north of 1 million is good. So 1.5 million is really something. And the other thing that the experts were expecting, and I was with them, I plead guilty on this too, is that we thought that there would be an up in June because there was actually one more selling day in June of this year compared to last year. And there was one more weekend of sales compared to last year. So on a total number basis, everybody was sure sales were up. But on a daily selling rate basis, they thought that sales would be down because, you know, roughly 68,000 people walk into a showroom every single day and buy a vehicle. So if you add one more day to the month's total, it can really skew the numbers. But even on a daily selling rate basis, sales were up 1.5% in June when everybody thought, including me, thought that they would be down. And so right now, year to date, sales are up 2%. This is not what anyone expected, especially not the car companies. They've been slowly cutting production because they were sure sales were going to go down. Why are sales up so much, or at least up? Number one, of course, is the economy is pretty healthy. Things are going pretty good. But I think another thing that's been overlooked is that the population of the United States continues to grow every single year by roughly 2 million people. So right now, today, there are 2 million more people living in the U.S. than there was exactly this day a year ago. And roughly 5% or so of the population goes out to buy a new car every year. So if you add 2 million people, that's about 100,000 more people that are in the market potentially to buy a new vehicle. I think that's been an overlooked fact, that population growth has been a key cause for sales to continue as strong as they've been going. Okay, that's what I've got for right now. Let's see what people want to ask about. Trevone Lewis says, hello, John, from Barbados. Barbados. That's a piece of heaven, man. I love listening to Autoline After Hours, and I hope you check out Autoline Daily. We got a great newscast. And, of course, Autoline This Week, our television program, and Ask Autoline, which you're watching right now. Okay, SubGR77 says, everyone that planned to buy a new car next year has moved up plans to do so. Why do you say so, SubGR77? Why do you think people might be buying this year instead of next year? Interesting point. He goes on to say, how much has all the Ford bargains helped drive the sales boost? I know 2 people that have bought because of that. Yeah, and I'm one of them. I went out and bought a Fiesta ST. In fact, Fiesta sales are going really strong right now, but don't let those numbers fool you. Ford is dumping them. They've got screaming bargains going right now. So, to your question, bargains are driving it. Yeah, but that's only on the pass car side. The rest of Ford's product lineup is going pretty strong, and it's not just bargains. People are out there buying. Trevon Lewis says, yes, I do on the website. So you do watch the shows. Thank you for saying that. And man, so jealous that you live in Barbados. That's really cool, man. And SubGR77 is saying the tariffs scare them. Yeah, maybe. I don't think that's it, though. I think the vast majority of the public is unaware of all this tariff talk. Mop wants to know, when, if any effect, will millennials start to affect sales? They already have. I mean, we're getting really close to millennials being the biggest group of people buying new cars, not used ones, new ones. So we're very, very close to seeing that crossover point where millennials now buy more than baby boomers. And this has been building for some time. So if you're wondering about the fact, it has already started. Cameron Hershkowitz wants to know about the Ford Mustang. I don't have those sales numbers at my fingertips. I don't know. If I recall, though, the Mustang didn't have a bad month. Mop says, or will they be just like boomers, just at later ages? I think we're going to see millennials buying a little bit differently. It's all about life stage, though. And so if millennials are getting married, having children, you're going to see minivan sales go up. You're going to see the kinds of vehicles that can accommodate families go up. And that's happened with every generation. So it's kind of easy to predict the same sort of thing will happen with millennials, just not exactly. Keith Taylor, what do you think, or do you think that there's some anxiety about the interest rates going up that is pulling sales from next year? I don't. I think there's that many people in the market right now. I don't think that people really plan a whole year in advance, at least not in the U.S. market when it comes to buying a car. I think they just decide, hey, the old clunker's given up the ghost and it's time to get a new one, pretty much. And so I don't think it's interest rates. I don't think it's fear of tariffs. I just think the market is that strong. Todd, a Star Wars story, says, do you still think companies cutting production was a good idea? And is this high sales streak bound to end at some point? Well, of course it's bound to end at some point. All sales streaks come to an end. So this one will too. The surprise is everyone, including me, thought it was going to happen in the first half of this year. It clearly hasn't happened yet. And I do think that cutting production is a smart move, because if you get caught with all this inventory, inventory levels down more than you'd normally see at this point. And they're saying this affects sales in July, that there just isn't as much choice out there for consumers. But if you look at the numbers, I mean, there's over 3 million vehicles in inventory right now, sitting on dealer lots, sitting at railheads, on trucks getting moved to dealerships. 3 million's a lot. So getting back to your point, though, I think keeping a tight lid on inventory is a smart thing to do. Joey's cleaning lady is back to ask, what do you think of Tesla's tent assembly line? Well, I'm not sure what it is. Real, is it an assembly line? When I first saw the picture of it, I thought, oh, it's a rework line. And rework is a term that they use in the industry. If you get a car that comes to the end of the assembly line and, oh, it needs a few little adjustments or things, you send it off to the rework line. That's what I thought the tent was going to be. And I think tent is maybe a bit of an unfortunate term for that building. It's a temporary building. It's not like a pup tent that the Boy Scouts would use. I mean, this is a fairly substantial building. But what I don't like about it is Tesla should have more than enough manufacturing capacity to make all the Model 3s and X's and S's with the plant that it's got. Remember, when Toyota and GM were running those operations there, they made something like 440,000 vehicles a year at their peak. So why Tesla can only bump out a little over 100,000 tells me that they've got big problems. And the tent, or the temporary building, was a desperate attempt to add yet a third assembly line to try to hit the numbers for the Model 3. Looks like they may have done it at least for a week. We'll see if they can consistently hit 5,000 a week on that. But building in a mad rush of a job, this temporary building, advantageous position when the SUV boom peters out. Well, no, I don't. And here's why. It's not just an SUV boom. What's really driving sales is crossovers. And what are crossovers? They are on passenger car platforms, passenger cars with an SUV body style. I don't think that's going to go out of style anytime real soon. And I think there will be somewhat of an advantage to keep passenger cars because we will see the decline in sales bottom out at some point. But I got to tell you, passenger car sales went down 38,000 cars last month alone. Of the 160 passenger car models in the United States, 125 of them have seen their sales go down this year. So this is, it's going to be tough holding on to passenger cars. JT50 says, hi, John. Hello there, JT. Do you think the LA Auto Show would be worth going to this year? Yeah, I do, i.e. new reveals, all the major OEMs show up. Yeah, look, LA Show is a good show. If you're into new cars, I would absolutely go and take a look. You may not be able to see all the cars that are available in the market because we're seeing car companies drop out of certain shows. Undoubtedly, some of them will drop out of LA, but it's still going to be a pretty good show. Alexander Karabitsa says, John, are you a member of the Society of Automotive Analysts? No, I am not. If so, is it worth joining as a college student? Yes, it is. And I'll go into that in a second. Also, do they live stream their conferences? I go to school in the Boston area. I would join if they'll let you in as a college student, because to get access to the material that they present would be really good for you. I do not believe they live stream their conferences, but you should check it out with them. And if you can get to any of their conferences as a member of the SAA, very beneficial. They always get very good speakers there. Travis Ware asks, with the need of less vehicles in the future, should manufacturers focus on upscaling their vehicles? Yeah, that's a good question, Travis. We're seeing them do that. Of moving more upscale. I think Mazda is a good example. I think Volvo is a good example. Scale. Then all you do is slice the market up thinner. You hurt the profitability. So hopefully not everybody will try to do that. But I think you're right. If we are facing a future with fewer cars, where we don't need as many cars, then the companies that are left selling them are going to need to make money because they're not going to be able to amortize the costs of their investments in making new vehicles, in manufacturing and engineering. If they have fewer vehicles, it's harder to spread those costs, hence the need to move upscale to make more profit on them. Zachary Pimmel, Zach, I'm going to call you because I'm just destroying your name. I'm getting my Model 3 this week or next week. What do you think? This is, what do you think? Is Tesla going to be profitable in Q2 and Q3? Yeah, I do, because Elon Musk has promised he is going to have not a gross profit, which I kind of dismiss. I ignore gross profit. What you really want to look at is operating profit. And of course, the most important of all, the bottom line, the net profit. And if you go by what they call GAAP principles, that's GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. This is where you get the blessing from the Securities and Exchange Commission of how you did your numbers. Elon Musk has promised we will see a net profit, a GAAP net profit for both the second and third quarters. And boy, if he misses those numbers, they are going to get crucified. Tesla stock will really take it on the chin. And that's why I believe they will post a profit. Hanel Acevedo says, our infrastructure is already rotting and no new spending. V2X, vehicle to everything, is going to require government spending, right? I'm not so sure about that, Hanel. I think private industry could absolutely step in to do this V2X infrastructure spending, as long as they make money on it. If there's no money to be made, you're right. Then the government's going to have to step in to do it. But I think there is money to be made on this. I think that collecting the data is going to be very valuable. And that's why I believe private industry is very likely to step in and say, hey, we'll put up all the infrastructure needed for V2X. Alexander's back saying, how long until crossovers get a soccer mom image? I think it's already happening. I'll tell you, I talked to Jim Farley at Ford. This is a couple of months ago. And one of the things that Ford is trying to figure out right now is how do you come up with a crossover that has a different body silhouette than they all do right now because of this very danger. From a silhouette standpoint, all the crossovers are starting to look really similar. So you're wondering when they might get that image? I think it's already started. David Glofelti says Q3, possibly Q4, not Q2. Oh, thank you for that, David. And what he's talking about is Elon has promised a profit in Q3 and Q4, not Q2. You're absolutely right. I'm just coming off a week's vacation. Give me a bit of a break here. But thanks for that correction. Joey's cleaning lady says Tesla doesn't do GAAP. Sometimes they do. Tesla is known for playing a little bit loose with the numbers. Typically, what they'll do is post their earnings non-GAAP, and they will post some of their numbers GAAP. So there's a bit of a mixture, but you're generally right. I mean, all the major car companies, the publicly traded ones, absolutely use GAAP figures when they report their numbers. So it'd be nice if Tesla would do that just across the board. Travone Lewis says, have you seen the new Suzuki Jimny? No, I have not. It's a mini Wrangler / Mercedes-Benz Geländewagen looking vehicle. If Suzuki was still around in the States, that alone would have driven sales through the roof. Maybe. And I only say maybe because they had some really cool little SUVs, cool little utes before, and the company just couldn't cut it in the American market. Thanks for your service, by the way, Alan. I can't get in or out of what we have, and I'm getting an XT5 when the check arrives. Yeah, and you know, that's a great point that you make, Alan. It's so much easier to get in and out of a vehicle that sits up a little higher, like crossovers do. I'm in still reasonably good shape, and even I like just sliding into the vehicle very easily instead of having to climb up to it like you have to do with pickups or plop yourself down in the seat like you do in most passenger cars. But that's a good point, and that's one reason why crossovers are selling so red hot like they are right now. Todd, a Star Wars story, is back to say, how could crossovers break that stigma? More unique styling, becoming sportier? Boy, Todd, put your thinking cap on. I think you're on the right track here, and this is something that the industry is grappling with. Now we know because Ford's talked about this publicly. It's coming out with an electric crossover that's got styling cues similar to the Mustang. So that's going to be Ford's first attempt at trying to break this silhouette design. The vehicle will be out, I believe, late next year. And then we can all be the judge. Has Ford succeeded in doing that? And if they have, is everyone else going to jump on board and just mimic Ford's silhouette? SubGR77 saying, your vacation was your break. Are you all partied out? LOL, go anywhere interesting? No, I stayed home. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. I got so many things done. Even though we only had a week off, I feel like I've been gone for a month. But thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Andy G says, Fusion sales are down. The Edge isn't doing much better. The Camry outsells both. Well, yeah, I mean, the Camry is the best-selling passenger car there is. You bet it outsells both. And they still sell in pretty strong numbers. I want to say they did around 28,000 vehicles last month, that's a good number. But Camry sales are starting to drop as well. Travis Ware says, is Tesla sweating the public response to Jaguar's I-Pace? The I-Pace isn't in my budget, but it's very intriguing for an electric vehicle. This has got to be Tesla's biggest worry. Up until now, it has had that premium electric car segment all to itself. And they've done pretty well having it all to themselves. But now comes Jaguar with the I-Pace. Here comes Porsche with the Taycan. I mean, Mercedes and BMW are going to be there. This is going to be Tesla's greatest test to date. How much panache, how much buzz does the Tesla brand have? Can the premium European automakers pry Tesla customers away from Tesla? We're going to know in the next 12 months. We are going to have the answer to that. Trevone Lewis says, a jacked up Mustang? Yikes. It's not just a jacked up Mustang. It's going to be electric, and Ford is saying it is going to have blisteringly impressive performance. So I can't wait to see what that vehicle's about. Joey's cleaning lady back saying, problem with the I-Pace is no fast charging infrastructure. Tesla has all of them beat with charging infrastructure. You're absolutely right, Joey. Absolutely right. That is one of the key advantages that Tesla has, is its superchargers. Scott Haberger says, the C-Max was a crossover alternative. Shame Ford couldn't update it. Yeah, the C-Max just didn't work. A lot of people just don't like the looks of the thing. It never caught on in any kind of numbers. I just think it's just not what the market's looking for at this point. And that could be a danger signal for others out there. But Tesla has proved, if you come out with a really good looking car that's electric, that has amazingly good performance, people will stand in line to buy it. David Glotfelty is back to say I-Pace is nice, but there's room for both to sell all they can make. I kind of agree with you on that, David. There's a lot of room for the EV segment to grow. But as I've said on this show before, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're headed for a disaster because there are too many EV models that are going to come out. I don't think the market's ready to embrace them yet. Claymore Excel says, I think the VW bus they have coming out looks way cooler than any crossover. Could Vans make a comeback? Yeah, they could. I mean, especially when you get to autonomy, and you can do anything you want on the inside of your vehicle. If you can do anything you want on the inside, you're going to want as much space as possible. And what gives you more space than anything else? A van does. It's just a box. And now you can do whatever you want with the space inside that box. And that's how vans could make a comeback, though they're going to have some pretty good styling. Maybe Chrysler's got it right along the lines of the Pacifica, because that thing's doing pretty well. Andy G says, the Germans are doing crossover coupes. Even the fastback look is taken to what's left? Crossover sedans? Great question, Andy. And you're right. The Germans are doing every kind of crossover there is under the sun. I don't know how they pull it off from a sales standpoint. It seems to be working for them. And when I say from a sales standpoint, to tool up so many different body styles is really expensive. The thing that the German premium brands have going for them is they sell all over the world. So even though they're not selling all that much in the U.S. market, my guess is if you look at their volume on a global basis, they're doing enough at least to justify the tooling of that. But, your question about a crossover sedan is an interesting one. You could raise up the body of a sedan and get that easy ingress and egress. But I think what people are looking for, too, is more of that SUV silhouette. I think they're actually looking for that, even though we're talking about maybe hitting the saturation point pretty soon. Jake from State Farm says, John, had a staycation. Laugh out loud. Good to have you back on the live stream. Thanks. Good to be back here. John Reed says, car sales in the USA up because of Trump, jobs. Our Canada sales are down because of the socialist Trudeau. It is true. Sales in Canada are down. They are up in the US. I'm not sure I would give Trump all the credit, but there's no question the American economy is very healthy. No question that Trump's tax cut is helping to keep it healthy and giving people money to make a down payment. That is playing a role. Trevon Lewis says, I'm 35 and still really love a vehicle equipped with a manual. Yes, sir. Good to hear. How are manual equipped vehicle sales doing in your opinion? As bad as ever. I mean, look, maybe 5% of all vehicles sold in the US have a manual transmission. I just bought one. I'm all for driving a manual, but the fact of the matter is it's only us die-hard enthusiasts who go out and buy them. Vehicles with manuals are hard to find. And as you'll find out too, when it comes to try to sell one, wow, you've just eliminated 95% of the potential buyers of your used car with a manual transmission. They ain't easy to sell. Dion B says, hey, John, did you see yourself in the promo video for the new Volvo S60 at the Charleston factory? No, I was there. So it must be me. But no, I did not see myself in that video. I'll have to check that out. NC says, CCS charging infrastructure will surpass Tesla supercharging with everyone jumping on it. So iPace will do just fine. You're right, NC, but it's not there yet. And the iPace is just about to hit the market. When that infrastructure, charging infrastructure is built out, and it'll take a few more years to do that, that is going to help electric car sales immensely. No question about it. Phantom Tuba says, doesn't Volvo have a crossover sedan thing? Yeah. I mean, I think you could call the XC40. Oh, no. I think you're thinking of maybe the V90 is station wagon, sedan, crossover kind of a thing. Look, there's no black and white when you get into describing vehicle segments. Everything's a shade of gray. Everything sort of blends one way or the other. So let's not get too hung up on describing something as exactly this or exactly that. I mean, look, Buick is trying to tell us that the Cross Tour wagon is an SUV. I don't know where they get these ideas. Jake from State Farm back saying, generally, I think manual sales are down across the board. Hardly any new vehicles even have it available as an option. It's a shame because I love my manuals too. And you're right. Fewer and fewer vehicles are coming with manual transmissions. They're even, I mean, Porsche, somebody out there will know this. I don't even think Porsche sells a manual transmission anymore. Where are we? Todd, a Star Wars Story says, what do you think of the new Pacifica? I borrowed one from someone for a few days, and while I was always anti-minivan, I thought the Pacifica was pretty nice. I'm knocked out by the vehicle, especially the plug-in version. Oh my gosh, it's a luxury vehicle. It's here's what I like about minivans. They have a longer wheelbase. The longer the wheelbase, the better the vehicle rides. Also, the bigger the interior, the more the sound waves from the sound system get to go out and expand, and it actually sounds better too. So right off the bat, you get a better ride and you get a better sound system just by having a van. Okay, Trevon Lewis says, oh yeah, looking for a good condition manual transmission vehicle in Barbados only yields clapped out 20-year-old plus clunkers now. I believe that too. That's pretty good. Okay, David Glafelti says, 10,000 supercharger stalls and growing. Just drove from the bottom of Pennsylvania to the top of Connecticut for $6.11 in supercharger fees. That's pretty good. And, you know, interesting that you mentioned that, David, because as more and more people start bragging about how little they're paying to charge their car, that is going to get more people interested in electrics. Todd, a Star Wars Story says, the thing is, as much as I enjoy manuals, autos are so much nicer in a daily driver when you deal with rush hour every day. Amen. But I still prefer manuals for some reason. Ha ha. No, you're right. In rush hour, manuals are a hassle. It's not fun. And automatics are so much better these days. You know, a lot of times today, you got to pay more to get a manual. In the past, in the not too distant past, you always had to pay more to get an automatic. You had to pay $1,000 more. And it got worse fuel economy. Today, the automatics are so good, they typically get better fuel economy than the manual. Alexander's back saying Volvo sold an S60 sedan with a raised ride height called the S60 Cross Country. Thank you for that. And that's the perfect example of taking a sedan and trying to push it into the crossover space. Middle says, I think the problem with EVs right now is cost. There seems to be about a $10,000 premium to get one right now. Once the pricing closes, I expect EV sales will start to grow since the cost to run EVs are less. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but boy, the cost is coming down slow. And even when it comes down, they're still going to be expensive. Batteries are expensive. You know, I've used this example before. The battery pack in a Chevrolet Bolt EV is over $12,000. Let's say you take $3,000. Let's say you take $4,000 cost out of that battery. It's still an $8,000 battery. So EVs have got a ways to go before they catch up with the cost of piston engine cars. Big Barney says, why worry about manual transmissions when electric vehicles make them obsolete? That they do. In fact, you don't even really need a transmission with an electric car, but we do see them, typically 2-speed transmissions. And the reason that they've got them is for gear reduction, simply from a noise standpoint. So you don't have this super high spinning whine going on. And you have to have a reverse. Well, you don't have to. You can actually reverse the electric motor and go in reverse, but it's a whole lot faster just to do it with the transmission. So, but interesting, you're right. We're not going to see electric cars with manual transmissions. Phantom Tuba says, do you think that luxury cars with multiple driving modes are killing sedan sales? People used to buy one comfy car and one fast car. You can get one car and press comfort or sport, replacing 2 cars. Yeah, not quite. You know, I find that the sport, normal, and eco buttons on cars help, but it's not like I feel like I can have a Lexus LS 400 and a Boxster in the same car. It's if you want a comfy car, buy a comfy car. If you want a fast sports car, buy a sports car. The button helps a little bit, but I don't think that's affecting sales at all. Zachary's back, and thanks so much for your awesome show. I love it so much. Thank you for saying so. Fernando Mendoza says, why is there no good hybrid between a manual transmission and an automatic one? Well, there's one called the DCT, dual clutch transmission, where you can shift usually with paddles behind the steering wheel, or you can use the gear shift lever on the floor. But typically people who like manual transmissions like me, I like to heel and toe, meaning, you know, you only have 2 feet, but you got 3 pedals with a manual transmission. So how do you press the clutch, hit the brakes, blip the engine for smooth downshifts? That's heel and toe shifting. If you can do it, it's rewarding to be able to do it. And DCTs, though they kind of mimic manuals, I don't find them any fun to drive whatsoever. I mean, if I'm going to get an automatic, I just want to put it in drive and leave it there, unless I'm on snowy or icy road conditions. And then it can be good to use engine braking, downshifting the engine instead of hitting the brakes, which can lock up the wheels in super slippery conditions. But if I got an automatic, I just want to put it in drive and just leave it there. Travone Lewis says, the government here has recently removed annual road tax and implemented a 40 cents per liter fuel tax. It'll be interesting to see if it drives more electric vehicle sales. 40 cents a liter, that's a lot. You know, there's what, roughly 4 liters in a gallon. So $1.60, yowza. Yes, that will help convince some more people to buy an electric car. Andy G says, in the Philippines, if you want a high spec vehicle with a manual tranny, you need to get a pickup like a Ford Ranger. Very interesting. I love getting these different viewpoints from around the world. I think that really helps us understand the automotive industry a whole lot better. So keep those comments coming for everybody outside of the U.S., even though I know most of the audience is in the U.S. Travone says, I've noticed quite a few Nissan Leafs and Hyundai Ioniqs on the roads. Yeah, they're doing better. But, you know, one of the things, too, is when you see a vehicle like a Leaf or an Ioniq because you don't see them that much, you start paying more and more attention to them. And then you start noticing them more. I've always said, if I could take any kind of a car and put pink polka dots on it, all of a sudden people would start talking about, wow, have you seen all those cars with the pink polka dots? Because it draws your eye to it. You start paying more attention to it. Anthony C. Brown says, gas prices are approaching $4 a gallon in California. Where are the PHEVs? Why are the manufacturers not making them or on more cars? They are. The list of PHEVs continues to grow. The market hasn't been exactly red hot for them, though. In fact, you know, regular hybrids and electrics easily outsell PHEVs, but you're going to see a slew of them hit the market in the next 2 years. Because a lot of people in the industry think that a plug-in hybrid is going to be better for most of the public. That is to say, every day they can plug in when they get home. They can start the morning out with a full electric charge. The electric charge of the plug-ins continues to grow. You know, we've seen some that were only 12 or 14 miles range, pure electric. Those were compliance cars. They were merely done to meet the compliance that California has with its ZEV mandate. But when you start approaching 30 or 40 miles, now most people can handle their everyday commute both ways without having to worry about plugging in. And then when they want to take a long trip, no worries. They've got the gasoline engine on board so they can go as far as they want. So I think we'll see more PHEVs hitting the market, but we'll really have to see if the public warms up to them. Charlie Hodges Media says, what are you hearing about Jeep having problems with the rollout of the 2-liter 4-cylinder? Few, if any, have been built and delivered. Good question. I don't know if they're having problems. They have not talked a lot about that. I've actually driven the engine in the Wrangler. It's faster than the V6, and it gets better fuel economy than the V6. It's really good. But I have not heard why they are slow with this. They're having a number of issues with some of their other, like the new Ram is off, everybody knows, to a very slow launch. Maybe they're pulling people from one program to help launch another. I don't know. That's a good question. So, but like I said, I've driven it. It has been developed. Ken Ong says, hello, I really love the Alfa Romeo Giulia. Do you think it should go ahead and I should go ahead and get it without worry about the reliability? I'll tell you, Giulia sales are doing pretty good. That has always been an issue with Alfa Romeo, quality and reliability. Look, if you love the vehicle, go out and get it. But make sure when you buy the vehicle, you're buying it from a really good dealer. I know there aren't that many Alfa Romeo dealers out there, so you may not have a lot to pick and choose from. But everyone should remember, when you buy a new car, you're buying a dealer as much as you're buying a car. So make sure that you get one that's got a really good reputation. Make sure that they're going to really take care of you. In fact, you know, a lot of good salespeople at the really good dealerships will take you out to meet the service manager. See if your Alfa Romeo dealership will do that for you. Life's Love says, Mercedes AMG cars are both luxury and high performance. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Phantom Tuba says, if you can find one used, the CRZ hybrid came with a manual. Is that right? I don't remember that. Oh, very interesting. Thanks for that, Phantom. Travis Ware says, what's your thoughts on the improved power in the 2019 Mazda MX-5? We always want more power. Every enthusiast always wants more power. The Miata is a brilliant car. It is so much fun to drive, but with more power, that car is going to be even better. So kudos to Mazda for continuing to improve, what is not really an old car. It's only been in the market a couple of years, but boy, I can't wait to drive that Miata with more power. John Reed says, who's going to pay the road tax when everyone is electric? Government will monitor your mileage and you will get a monthly bill. What about the electrical grid when everyone tries to go electric? No, you're right. And of course, every state, every country is worried about this. What happens as electric cars start to catch on and they don't pay a gasoline tax or a diesel tax? And you're right. One of the talks or one of the ideas bandied about is charging you per mile. Now, that's got people worried about Big Brother. Are you going to come look inside my car and see how many miles I've driven? Are you going to track where I've driven? How are you going to do it? But it's going to have to get resolved, because the way that we keep our roads and bridges maintained is largely through a gasoline tax. And as that tax starts to drop, they're going to have to make up the money some way. Some states are charging more to register your vehicle, electric vehicle. Some states are charging more to get a license plate for your electric vehicle. So that's how they're making up the difference right now. But you're right. At some point, they're going to have to come up with a different way of funding roads. SubGR77, put those dots on your Fiesta, pink polka dots on my Fiesta. No way in hell, man. Or will the pink clash? You guys are sick. I love it. Claymore XL says, it is the Baader-Meinhof phenomena. Once you notice or experience or hear something, you start noticing it more everywhere. Baader-Meinhof, of course, if you guys don't know, was this terrorist gang in Germany back in when? The 80s, I guess it was. You guys, this is good. Andy G says, regarding the subcompact SUV, CUV segment, how is the trendy Hyundai Kona and funky Toyota CRH trailing behind the EcoSport? Ford knows how to sell crossovers. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. One of the key strengths of the Ford Motor Company is its dealer body. They could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. They really know how to move the metal. RLH Marine says, what have you heard about the GM inline 3-liter 6-cylinder truck engine? Only what you've heard. I mean, they talked about it, and then we haven't heard a thing about it. That's going to be a pretty cool engine, though. I mean, no one's done a brand new inline 6 in a long time. And the beauty of it is they are just so naturally balanced. I mean, they are so smooth. So I'm guessing sometime this year I'll get a chance to drive that, and I'll let you know once I do. Fernando Mendoza says, do you know about Clear Motion? They bought the Bose suspension technology to further develop it and commercialize it. You should invite them for after hours. Good suggestion. No, good suggestion. I'm going to have to figure out how to track those people down and see if they can come into the studio to talk with us. Phantom Tuba says, Prius plug-in outside of the U.S. have solar panels that can charge the battery 3 miles a day. Will these come to regular hybrids to top off their batteries every day? My hybrid can do 2 miles electric. I mean, there is a cool factor. I understand. You're doing your part for the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But come on, 3 miles. I don't know what the cost of those panels are, but it probably isn't worth it. Now, as panels get better, as the cost comes down, then we can, probably reevaluate it. But I want to say, and maybe you guys can look this up. I think the Mazda 626 was the first car with a solar panel on it. They had it as part of the sunroof, but all it did was run a fan. So if you had to park out in the baking sun on a super hot day, that would circulate air in the car so it wouldn't be blistering hot when you got inside. But I think that was the first car that had a solar panel on it. Okay, AZ Duffman says, why are some manufacturers teasing autonomous vehicles without controls? Many times a day, you make minor corrections, entering your garage, etc. What gives? I'm not sure I understand the question. Well, look, AZ, I mean, if you have an autonomous vehicle, you're never going to have to adjust the mirrors or the steering wheel. The car is never going to have to do that either. So let's keep moving. Middle says, my area just added a tax on your registering an EV. Yeah, I like I said, I think that's going to be pretty common. Phantom Tuba says, road and excise tax per mile would hurt rideshare driving. I easily do 50,000 miles a year. Yowza. Yowza. Um, I don't think it would hurt ride sharing. I think it would help ride sharing, because if you're going to get taxed by the mile, if you can throw somebody else in the car that'll help pay for it, why not? Joey's cleaning lady back saying, with connected cars, they can track where you are driving and you pay tax based on how many miles you drive a year. And I think you're right, Joey's. I think that's how it's going to go. They're going to figure out, without compromising your privacy, how many miles your vehicle has driven on the road, and you will get taxed accordingly. David Gofelti says, would you think most fair would be a tax equals miles times weight yearly and a carbon surtax on big polluters? Yeah, I like that idea. I think that is good. Miles times weight, sure, because a heavy vehicle is going to wear out the roads more than a very light vehicle. I think you got something there, David. Okay, Muhammad Amini says, hi, John. As far as I know, manufacturers have orders for 6 months in advance, so they know how things are selling for at least 6 months. Am I right? They get orders from dealers in advance. I don't think it's 6 months. I think it's more like 3, but I don't know that for a fact. You could be right. But you don't know who's going to walk into the store and buy stuff. Like I say, last month, 68,000 people walked into dealerships every single day to buy a new vehicle on average. So, you know, even though dealers order in advance, they don't know who's going to come in their store and buy. In Europe, for example, it's very different. Consumers in Europe and in Japan and other countries like that will wait easily 6 to 8 months to get the car that they want. They'll figure out that it's time to buy a new car. They'll do all their shopping and they will order exactly the car that they want, and they'll wait for it. Some of the reason for that is interesting. You know, in the United States, we got lots of land. So you can have acres and acres of parking lot at your dealership, fill it up with all kinds of cars. You go to Europe, you go to Japan or other places, the dealerships are fairly small. I mean, all they can carry is what they can cram into their showrooms, and their showrooms are not very big. And so they don't have acres of cars on the lots to sell you right there that afternoon. And so in the US, you don't have very many consumers ordering the car they want. They just go shopping and they buy what they can find. Okay, SubGR77 says, with PHEVs, how long can you run them without using the gas engine until there's a problem with fuel in the tank? Good question. You know, I remember when the Chevrolet Volt with a V first came out, every few months or so, it would start the engine and run it just so the gasoline wouldn't go stale. I think they've overcome that problem right now. But yeah, I mean, you probably don't want to go several years with the same gasoline in the tank and in the fuel injection lines and even in the fuel injectors. It probably varies by manufacturer. All I remember is what Chevrolet did with the Volt when it first came out. Travis Ware says, how many more cars will be on the side of the road when they run out of electric juice? There are tons of people who drive on empty. And those are the people who will be at the side of the road with their electric cars with no juice. And you're probably going to see roving emergency generators that will show up, you know, with batteries in them so they can get out the defibrillator. Don't want to run out of juice on the road. Worry about where are we going to plug into next. As we talked about earlier in this show, once the infrastructure that. Joey's cleaning lady says, at Travis Ware, you have a full tank every day you plug in at home. And that's true. Most people with an electric car or a PHEV will leave their garage every morning with a full tank. Big Barney says, the Bolt has 200 plus miles every day and can charge at night. Yeah, exactly. It's got about 238 miles of range by the EPA. Though I got to tell you, I've gotten 250 miles out of a Bolt. All depends on how you drive it. David Glatfelty says, put panels on your roof and charge your car. Works better and doesn't get cracked by flying rocks. Okay. He's talking about solar panels. Jake from State Farm says, it was the 929. Okay. I thought it was the Mazda 626. Jake is saying, no, it was the 929. It had the solar grid on the sunroof. I'm surprised you remembered that. Well, you know, hey, you get to be my age. You remember all this old stuff. Phantom Tuba says, Prius with the deluxe solar roof in the U.S. has the solar panel to run. Wow, thanks for that info, Phantom. Really good stuff. And we're getting down towards the end here. SubGR77 says, wasn't there a Lincoln that had a solar panel as an option in the 90s? Not that I remember. Maybe somebody else will know that. Jake from State Farm says, my first car was a 97 66, and while it didn't have a solar grid in the sunroof, it did have oscillating HVAC vents. I remember that, and that was really cool. I don't know why Mazda gave up on that. Also, the 626 had, there was a 626 coupe that had four-wheel steering back in the 90s, and that was a pretty awesome car to drive. Andy G says, before when the car broke, we replaced them. What happens to the touchscreen infotainment system 10 or 15 years from now? You'll just put your phone and tape it to the dash because the expense of replacing the infotainment screen today is horrific. Give it 10 or 15 years when there's none around, it'll be impossible unless somebody comes up with some sort of universal low-cost one. But as far as I know today, like I said, you're probably just going to tape your phone to the dashboard. Muhammad Amini says, thanks for your reply. Dealers actually purchase from manufacturers. Are the numbers that GM or Ford announce are the number of cars that their dealers sell to their consumers? Yeah. When we talk about car sales, when we report them on Autoline Daily, we talked about it today on Autoline Daily, those are sales to retail and wholesale customers, wholesale being fleet buyer, or I should say retail and fleet buyers. They are not the numbers of the factory to the dealer. They are the numbers of the dealer to people walking in the store to buy them. Arno Schmidt says, I saw first reviews of the Audi e-tron EV. What do you think about that car compared to the Tesla Model X? It's interesting that it looks a lot like an Audi. Especially on the interior. I was expecting Audi to do more like Tesla's gone with, a very austere, very plain interior dominated by a massive screen. Whereas if you look at the interior, the instrument panel of the e-tron looks like every other Audi. I'm surprised Audi didn't take the opportunity to really change the design language of the interior of its cars. But it's an Audi. I expect it to be extremely well, thoroughly engineered, and that it's going to be a really good competitor to Tesla. And because Audi's got stores everywhere, easy to repair them, much more easy than what Tesla faces right now. So yeah, as I said earlier in this segment of Ask Autoline, Tesla's going to face some serious competition right now. Claymore XL says, at least running out of battery in an electric car doesn't cause as much damage to your motor as running out of gas from a dirty tank. Yeah, I suppose. I haven't run out of gas in a long time. But with the filters and all, today's modern cars, I'm not so sure you got to worry about the dirty tank. Muhammad Amini says, McAdam, Verizon CEO, said in an interview that autonomous vehicle is not possible without 5G. What's your opinion? Well, he's trying to sell 5G. Of course it's possible without 5G. We don't have 5G yet. There's all kinds of autonomous cars being tested on roads today. You know, what is Waymo claim? They've done 5 million test miles on today's roads with no 5G. Cruise Automation claims it's racking up 1 million test miles a month with no 5G. So, of course, we do not need 5G. But here's the thing. 5G is going to be awesome. It is going to have incredible communication capabilities with almost no latency. That's the time it takes information to go from your car into the cloud and back again. 5G is going to be amazing in what it can do. But what all the telcos, the telephone companies want is 5G. Verizon being, being one of them. Because if you use 5G, you have to use the telcos. They want to make money off autonomous cars. This is why others are arguing that for V2I or V2X, we should be using SDRC. I think it's what? Short dynamic range communication. It doesn't use 5G. It's available today. It's being used right now. Several Cadillac models already have it. The telcos are telling everyone, oh, SDRC, it can't work at all. It's no good, because they want everyone to use 5G so they can make money off that. Okay. Booch says, John, have you driven the Ram mild hybrid e-torque system? No, they haven't let me drive that yet. Supposedly, they were going to let us do that this month, but I haven't heard word one from them. They told me over a month ago that I'd be able to get into it. So, like I said, they're having launch issues with the Ram. Maybe they're not yet ready to bring this thing to market. Andy G says, did you guys see the photos of Tesla using F-150 and Transit Connect service vehicles? Interesting. Did not see that, Andy. Thanks for pointing that out. Anthony Brown says, Elon Musk raced to a complex technology solution to rescue the kids in the Thailand cave when a less complex solution made more sense. What does this say about Elon's problem-solving skills? Look, to me, you know, Elon's had a bad week. They hit their 5,000 Tesla Model 3s and the stock market yawned. Nothing happened. Meanwhile, he keeps getting all these attacks, and I think this move to go save the kids in Thailand is a way for Elon to try to get good publicity about himself again. He's got much bigger problems for his company to worry about than these kids in Thailand. And some of the best diving experts from all over the world are involved in rescuing those kids. I think this is another attempt by Elon to grab headlines, I'm sad to say. Okay, Fenton Tuba says, I'd never get an electric car unless it had a wireless driving pad that you could just drive onto, or have the car's driver assist drive itself on it and center it. And I think what you're talking about, Phantom, is for charging. You know, you just drive over the pad and the car will charge, and that's all coming. And yes, with some autonomy, it can self-center on that too. In fact, I want to say, I can't remember, it was one of the German suppliers, Bosch or ZF, showed us an electric car using autonomy to center over the wireless charging pad. Mike Flower says, when are we going to stop plugging in our cars? Induction charging is the way to go. Well, we just talked about that. Would you want to get in and out of the rain or snow to plug in? That's already been dealt with, Phantom. I've actually plugged in an electric car in the rain. It's not an issue. And same with the snow. The engineers who worked on this pretty much figured it out. Now, I wouldn't put my tongue on it. I wouldn't put my fingers in there. But if you, I mean, these are big plugs. You're not going to get electrocuted on those things. John Reed says, my mechanic says you need to use gas up every 4 months. It goes stale faster now because of the corn-based fuel that was made mandatory by the government. That's a good point. With ethanol in there, it probably is a smart move to use up all your gas after 4 months. SubGR77 says, do you see four-wheel steering coming back into fashion? We've all seen that Ford F-150 with four-wheel steering that a company is trying to sell to the OEMs, but will it come back to sports cars? Actually, quite a few luxury cars right now already have it. Cadillac CT6 has got it. I want to say Mercedes S-Class. There's a bunch of them. So it is coming back. But to your point, the best application for four-wheel steering is with long wheelbase pickups and SUVs. General Motors had a four-wheel steer system a decade and a half ago, and it gave a Chevy Silverado the same turning radius as a Honda Civic. It was impressive. Okay, I'm going to take one more, and then I think we're going to hang it up here. Greg Helton wants to know, what percent of car sales are actually leases? Leases give car sales a pretty high base that grows as the popularity of leasing grows, right? It varies by company. Some companies have very high lease rates. They tend to be the luxury ones, others less so. Customers are going to need a new car 3 years from now, and you can start to market directly to them. Here's the downside of leases. All of a sudden, a bunch of people decide, I'm getting out of my lease. I'm going to go somewhere else and try something new. Now you're stuck with a bunch of cars that just came off lease. Right now, it's not too bad because the used car market is pretty hot. You can put them into that. But if it slows down, we've seen some companies really get caught out. But I would say, if I were to guess, leasing probably averages, based on the company, from just under 20% to just over 30%. But in that band range is where most car companies fall, somewhere in the 20 to 30% range. Okay, I know there's more questions there, but we've gone an hour here. We're going to have to save some of them for next time. And by the way, I want to plug next week, we have a new video from Sandy Monroe coming, who tore down the Model 3, as you know. And Sandy has come up with some very interesting conclusions. And I'll only give you one hint because we're kind of under embargo on that. He says he's got to eat crow on what he first said about the Model 3. Anyway, we'll have more next week all about that. Signing off, John McElroy for Ask Autoline.